Welcome, everyone. We know the fact that the offense is going to be purring with Caleb Williams, but has the problem on defense? Will Grinch be able to silence their critics? Find out next. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Trojan Conquest Live, Trojan Conquest Volume 7 this week. We had a great spring game on Saturday that we want to discuss. Lots of news, lots of quotes. Thank you all again for being here. We appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday to be with us. Thank you to all of our loyal subscribers. We look forward to bringing you guys future content on Sundays as well. But this week, we have a great opportunity to talk about the spring game. This is when the season really kind of kicks to an end with the spring ball coming to a close. We kind of get an idea of who's going to be on the team. Soon, we're going to have some little more roster movement. I'm sure that Rick's going to talk about in a moment. But with no further delay, here's Rick.
Hey, Tim. Thanks a lot. Welcome, everybody, to Trojans Conquest Live. Love having you. Appreciate all our loyal followers. Great time here talking about USC football. Invite your friends. Get up to speed on USC football as we're moving into the second year of Lincoln Riley's tenure as the head coach. Like Tim said, we had a great time yesterday at the spring game. It was a beautiful day, 72 degrees, about 25,000 fans there. And Lincoln Riley was orchestrating the whole thing. And Caleb Williams showed up for about a minute and 10 seconds. 3-play drive, 75 yards, capped off by a 10-yard TD. Right corner of the end zone to Mario Williams. I think that's how the last spring game started. Mario with an amazing catch. You can see the chemistry. And then Caleb was apparently done for the day, but he did not leave the building.
Yeah, no, it was one of the funniest comments I heard in the press box was someone said, it looked like Caleb played about as much as we did today. So then everyone started laughing. It was a great quote. But yeah, so this week we do have a lot on the plate. We're going to go into some recruiting news. We're going to talk about some transfer portal movement, possible some movement coming back in. And then we really have some great guests. We have Tony Altimore. You guys know Tony. He was with us on our post-game wrap-up show all last year, and will be again starting in the fall. And then we have someone super special. We have John Jackson, the record-setting receiver for USC. And then we will also have, as always, Matt Zemek stopping in for a few minutes to talk about some news and notes that he's bringing over from the Trojans Wire. So the first thing we want, Rick, you have something to add?
I was going to say jam-packed show, lots of fun. Drop your comments. If you were at the spring game, what stood out to you? Go ahead. If you have any questions, we'll have some time at the end. If you'd like to call in, I think Tim's going to drop the StreamYard link sometime during the show. But give us your impressions throughout in the chat of what you thought of the spring game. Tim, I kind of talked about Caleb's first drive. What was your impression? You were walking around getting a lot of great shots that you're going to be sharing today. And we had field access. So it was a very special day. What were your impressions, Tim?
Yeah, well, the one thing that everyone's been talking about that I can see for myself is, yeah, these guys look bigger. Even the guys from the previous that were on the team last year, they're just looking bigger as well. I was impressed with seeing the size on guys like Kion Bars, even Jacoby Covington, who we have featured here on the cover. The team as a general looks really good. There's a comment that I heard that Benny Wiley said that, hey, they look like a bunch of like magazine models, right? Now I'm gonna make you look like football players. And let me tell you what, you guys, Trojan fans out there, we got a team of football players. I think you'd be really happy to see them when they get on the field. A little bit of news we have that came out was this guy, Kliff Kingsbury. If you guys remember, he came to USC for a cup of tea. I think he was here for like maybe a month. He was announced as the offensive coordinator for USC. And then he took a job in the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals, leaving us in disarray, and they ended up with Graham Harrell. Rick, what do you think is going to happen with Kliff Kingsbury? What do you think his role is going to be going forward?
Well, we've heard that Lincoln Riley said he's going to be in the quarterback's room, working with the quarterbacks, also going to participate in some type of capacity with game planning. And, I have some friends that are like, well, geez, that's great. Can he coach the defense? What is he going to do with the defense? Oh, if you remember, about a week and a half ago, we hired longtime college and NFL defensive guru Greg Brown to be the defensive analyst. Yes, no. Kliff Kingsbury is going to be able to take some work off of Lincoln Riley's plate. Lincoln Riley obviously trusts him. He comes from the Mike Leach tree. He understands, the language with the offense with Lincoln Riley. So in year 2, Lincoln Riley doesn't have to deal with everything that he had to deal with last year in terms of recruiting, building the program, the infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. So now he's going to be finding some additional time, be more of a CEO, and focus in on what needs to move the program forward. And Lincoln Riley talked about in his press conference after the spring game, he talked about situational mastery and coaching continuity. Those are 2 big aspects. Situational mastery is, hey, looking back at those key moments where there was player error, and he didn't mention it, but coaching error. So this is going to be able to, guy like Kliff Kingsbury is going to be able to give Lincoln Riley more of a 30,000-foot level view, CEO, of what's going on with the program. Where do we need additional attention? Obviously, that is the defense. That is, recruiting. As we move forward to 2024, I want to see Lincoln Riley recruit the defensive side of the ball. What are your thoughts, Tim?
Yeah, like we talked about previously on a couple of episodes ago, the fact that you have this coaching continuity, I think it was in episode 2, we went into how that's going to pay dividends this year. What's going to happen is they're not doing a bunch of install, right? They now, as the coaches, they've been there a year, and also the players. Now the players know both systems. You brought in a brand new offensive system, brand new defensive system that almost all except for 3 of them weren't familiar with, and the guys had to get used to the different schemes. Now not only do you have players on the field that now can coach the younger guys or the transfers, but now that that's all been installed, they're just adding and tweaking to it, moving guys to different positions. They can actually make some movement. Then also on top of it, now if you have Lincoln Riley having an opportunity to free up some time, maybe I'm thinking where his biggest, Kliff Kingsbury's biggest asset's going to be as an analyst, he's going to be able to break down the film. He's going to be able to talk to, instead of having Riley having to pour through film, which I'm sure he still will, but you have Kliff Kingsbury, an NFL head coach, an offensive guru that's going to be sitting there as an analyst. This is the same thing that the big boys do. This is what Alabama and Georgia have been doing for a long time, where you bring in these ex-coaches, almost like they call it for the car wash, right? Where you had Sarkisian, you had Kiffin come over to Tuscaloosa and become analysts, and then become coaches on the field, and then move on to something else. I think Kliff might have a different trajectory than that, but he will be in that same role. He's coming off the NFL issues in Arizona. Now he's a moment to clean up what he had going, and during that time, still collecting a paycheck from Arizona, but also help out USC to win a national championship.
Absolutely. It's a big win for the Trojans. Again, this is national news. It shows you that USC is making the strides that other top national programs such as Georgia, Alabama, as you mentioned, Tim, are taking. So, having a defensive analyst, having an offensive analyst, senior offensive analyst like a Kliff Kingsbury, this is big boy football. USC's invested. They're continuing to show you, which we'll talk about other great news items later in the show. But all these investments as we're stacking, moving towards 2024, and the Trojans move to the Big Ten.
Yes. And then speaking of the spring game, perfect timing. We got Matt Zemek joining us. Matt, how you doing?
Doing well.
So Matt, welcome.
The spring game was great. Obviously, as we know, there's usually 15 practices capped off with the spring game as your 15th practice. It's an opportunity for all the players to show all the hard work that they did throughout the spring camp, as well as for the fans to finally get a look at some of these guys that we've only been reading about or seeing on the internet. Matt, what was your biggest takeaway from the spring game?
I think the first thing is no injuries, but after that, like the mistakes that we saw, I think this is the important thing. The mistakes that we saw were generally not from failing to understand where to be on the field. They were like either nervous energy or overeager effort, like the Tackett Curtis personal foul. Wanted to get in there and make a hit. Really just excitement, nerves, all the things that you'd naturally associate with, this moment, which is a really big deal for a lot of guys, especially the newcomers on the team. So, and Lincoln Riley did point to this too, that like he didn't want it to be this clean, beautiful game. And I mean, like the instinct, of course, is to want everything to go smoothly. But really, when you think about it, you want the spring game to have a lot of rough edges so that guys are going to be coached up. They're going to look at this film and they're going to go, "Uh-oh, I'm not there. I'm not where I need to be.
Yeah, you just click
I'm
on
not where I should be." And so when we get to August camp, when we get into the ramp up to the regular season, like guys will be in a mindset of like, I have work to do. And in many ways, it reinforces what we had at the end of the season with the Cotton Bowl loss to Tulane, when just, a few lapses on special teams. And then, of course, the implosion on defense, like anyone who was returning
I'm on the phone on my show,
for the next season, it left them with a bad taste in their mouth. It left them with a sense of, we're not there.
Nope.
I like the fact that there is reason to
so don't worry, don't rush.
Drive forward into late spring, into the summer, and, with a real sense of urgency and an awareness of we are not all that. Like we have the potential, but like we're not there. We need to put in the work, and also we need to get used to game situations. Like if we remember from last season. It was the USC's team had never played a road game before in Corvallis. They were so rattled in the first half of that game. So like getting used to game situations, and that's what what a spring game should achieve. It's not just practice drills. It's not just kind of concepts that are out there. Okay, this is live action. Real heat of the moment stuff here. And so like the nerves, like. Good coaches will coach players how to deal with nerves, how to deal with pressure, and like your preparation and your confidence in knowing that you are ready for the game. That is supposed to give you the tunnel vision to enable you to achieve elite performance and not to overthink anything. Zachariah Branch, like he was just a little overeager. You could tell he was just, he was really excited, but that got in the way of his clarity of focus. But like nothing to be overly alarmed about. Like that's just a natural organic thing. And so it's good that you have these things now in the spring. You don't want them against Stanford early in the season in early September.
Yeah.
So really, I think you could see the energy and the effort. And I think you could also see, that all the deficiencies and just all the natural areas where this team is still lacking. Nothing to really overreact about, and I think that it should give this team the right mindset heading into the summer with no injuries.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that one mistake that was made by Zach Branch, he had that drop, a lack of focus. But my God, is this guy everything that I've heard about? The way this guy. The way this guy moves, the stretch. I see. The one thing I knew, I saw the video of footage of him being fast and quick and cuts and everything, but the physicality this guy brings was something to be witnessed. Rick, what did you think about the fact that the way he was taking it to linebackers? What did you think about that?
Yeah, he gave a little forearm shimmy to Shane Lee, and but Zach Branch not only is just an athletic freak, but the dude's a workout fiend, and it's one thing to be physically fit, strong, but to actually take it to Shane Lee, a redshirt senior, that's something that shows you how tough the guy is. He's not going to be afraid about going across the middle. Really tough guy. Like Matt mentioned, yeah, he did have a couple drops. He's excited. It's his first time. He's a freshman. He's out in the Coliseum. Yeah. That's going to happen. but his ceiling is just ridiculous. And he stood out to me. Tim, name a player or a couple of plays that stood out to you.
Oh, where do I start? Jeez. Okay, so let me just go back to let's go from stats really quickly. What you guys mind? Let's hit this really quick. So a lot of running backs got the ball. You had the person who was in the lead actually would have been someone like Joyner. Sorry, I looked thinking Joyner. He had 6 carries. He was the guy that stuck out to me. I know you were impressed by that one run, Rick. You want to break that down?
Quinn Joyner, he's a true freshman out of Texas. Number 21, he's about 5'11", 203, 204 pounds. Reminds me of a little bit smaller version of Lendell White. But this guy's physical. He's fast. He's sneaky. But he was going towards the peristyle end zone, and he broke a few tackles and got into the end zone. And just a physical runner. That guy is he's crazy. He's crazy good. He's got a lot of respect from his teammates. The other running back, Amarian Peterson from Texas, Wichita Falls, another Texas guy. There was a tough Texas guy about 20 years ago with the last name of Peterson, first initial A. And this Amarian Peterson, he's about 6 foot, 200 pounds. And there was a great quote by Mason Cobb. He said, this guy is physical, he's a great runner, and he's hard to be taken down. Basically, 1, 2, 3, 4 guys to take this guy down. He's that good, he's that elusive, he's that strong. So guy knows how to hit the hole. That's respect when you're coming from a senior middle linebacker. And he's been in practice for 14, 15, practices. So kudos to both of these freshman running backs. They really stood out.
You made the comparison to a contemporary of this guy who was also a 21 at USC. I think Peterson's 21 as well. And that's White, man. He reminds me of the way Lendale White would run and the power. Because a lot of people remember Lendale's strength, but I remember the stiff arms and all that. But I also remember being quick and athletic, sneaky fast and athletic. And that's what this guy, kid Peterson's reminding me of. What do you think, Matt?
All great observations. I love the fact that Marshawn Lloyd, the word on him coming from South Carolina, and I'm not going to say that I've watched him extensively at South Carolina. Like, I know he was the workhorse back for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks last season, but the word on him was that he was going to be the power back. He was going to be the guy between the tackles, middle third of the field. He showed some elusiveness on the edge. Yeah, so it's not just a power game with Marshawn Lloyd. It's that he can make people miss in the open field. So, I think you, Tim and Rick, you would agree that the running backs were the best position group from the spring game. That seemed to really stand out to me. And it's not as though the other units didn't, have their moments, but I think the running backs as a group really showed out well. And that's really encouraging because, and we've talked about this in previous editions here at the Voice of College Football, Trojan Conquest Live, USC's ability to not just score, but possess the ball, keep it away from opposing offenses that we're going to see in the Pac-12, keep it away from Sam Hartman and Notre Dame, especially with a lead. Like you have, multiple running backs that you can rotate, keep fresh, and they all have diversified skill sets. Man, that looks like more and more of a strength for this team.
Matt, I would, because if we want to split it between offense and defense, I'm with you. But we also had 3 interceptions by the safeties, right? Oh, no, sorry. We didn't the secondary, not by the safeties. We had 3 interceptions by the secondary. Covington had 2, and freshman Christian Pierce had 1. So, I mean, if we're going to give away game balls, man, I guess on the offense side of the ball, to the running back unit, that room did well. But man, the secondary shined as well, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. But you
got to give some respect to our boy Mason Cobb, middle linebacker. he showed a different dynamic. Sorry about that, Tim, but he showed a different dynamic that we didn't have last year. And he kept up with that speedster. Taj Washington ran a sideline route across the middle, and he was step for step with Taj Washington and knocked that ball down. Just didn't have that speed to the sideline in coverage with the linebackers.
And, I'm trying to remember what else it was. Yeah, there was also another pursuit play where whoever had the ball had to run back a little bit, but the pursuit, the lateral pursuit especially, it was refreshing. You can absolutely see the athleticism and speed on that defense. They are quicker. They are faster. Yeah.
And Mason Cobb mentioned that he had one-on-one with Taj Washington during practice, and he didn't make the play. He mentioned this in the post-game interview afterwards, but today he did. So that goes to show you that, hey, that's his role. Mason Cobb said that's what he's working on his game right now to get to the next level. He's got to show that he can cover, running backs coming out of the backfield. So what a focused guy. And he is going to be such a huge asset. We're talking about the defense. Did Grinch fix the defense? We're going to have to wait and see. But I'll tell you what, and we're going to get into it, all the different pieces that were on display that we got to see. You talked about Covington. You talked about Christian Pierce, the freshman safety. There's Kion Bars. Solo looked phenomenal. Tim, tell me what you saw on the defense.
Well, you just brought up Mason Cobb, and you're the one who brought up that really good point. He said when he was talking about the defense and talking about the ceiling, he says, I wouldn't put a ceiling on these guys. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. But since I got here, this is the first practice. It's been a whole different defense, a lot more confidence. And I think that's what's coming with. They're playing with confidence in the scheme. They don't have to think about what they're going to do, right? That they have that down now. So they're not thinking, they're not reacting. They're actually making plays. And I think that as a team, as a whole, we're talking about the pieces and the people coming in, but I think the fact that they have most of them have a year in this defense, and then the newcomers, these guys aren't, they're not new to football. Kion Bars, he's a senior. Cobb, he's not new to the game. The guys that came in, they brought in our seasoned players. And Matt, do you have anything to add about the fact that they have added these players as well as just another year in the defense?
I in terms of defense and who stood out, Sam Green, made an impact early with the pass rush. And one of the things we talked about was, like, it can't just be one guy. Like, obviously you want, Anthony Lucas maybe to be like this year's equivalent of Tuli Tuipulotu last year, but really getting multiple guys on that defensive front to produce. So that was a very encouraging sign from the defense. In terms of year one, year two, I do think like the reactions were a little bit crisper, but here's the cautionary note. Caleb Williams played 3 plays.
Yeah.
and that is going to affect the speed and the timing of the offense. And on those 3 plays, like whoop, 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 like it was very easy. So I think like that's the cautionary note. But as the spring game went along, you did see defensive players making crisper, more polished reactions. I would also say, and I know, and I'm seeing some comments here in the chat here at the Voice of College Football, what if we get Bear Alexander? And that would be a giant acquisition.
Yeah,
Trojans can get that.
I saw that
just a thing. Yeah, just a thing here. A quick note, important note. So I'm part of the College Wire Network. We have 24 College Wire sites under the USA Today umbrella. So like I made sure I read Georgia Wire, UGA Wire to be specific, ugawire.usatoday.com, what they were saying about Bear Alexander. And they said Kirby Smart envisioned a big centralized, primary role for Bear Alexander on this year's Georgia defense. All right. So this is not some peripheral player who couldn't make the cut. He sacked Max Duggan, ragdolled him last January in LA in the national championship game. So if USC does land him, that is a home run. That is a Max Muncy moonshot against the San Francisco Giants.
Hang on, I want to talk about it, but before we get to talk about who we think's coming in, we got some news. Rick was first one to point this out to me last week. Rick, do you want to touch on the 2 players we lost this week?
Yeah. So Tuesday we lost offensive lineman Cortland Ford, and you recall he started a couple years ago. He dealt with some injuries, and so he entered himself into the portal on Tuesday, looking for a playing opportunity. So best of luck to Cortland Ford. And the secondary as we know, is loaded. And so third-year player Joshua Jackson Jr. also entered the portal, I believe, on Friday. It was reported that he really wasn't involved in spring practices. He's going to graduate in May, and he's going to be in the portal as a graduate transfer. So we wish the best to Joshua Jackson Jr. And so those are two players going out. I'm sure there's going to be others that are going to be contemplating their future. The transfer portal originally was set for the spring transfer portal was originally set for May 1st through the 15th, but the Division I Council back in October agreed to move the date up from April 15th to April 30th to give coaches and players more time to evaluate their decision-making process, to get into the portal, acclimate to a new team, and to be ready for summer workouts. So it's upon us. It opened yesterday, and as some people in the chat are mentioning, yes, there's Bear Alexander, reportedly is in the transfer portal, but as you know, it takes a couple days. The university has 2 days to officially put them in the portal. Don't want Lincoln Riley making a phone call before he's officially in the portal. But there's a lot of players that are out there. There's another one, offensive lineman Cameron Johnson from the University of Houston is going to reportedly have a visit to USC on Friday, April 21st. He's a fifth-year guard, again, from the University of Houston. He put his name in the portal early in March. There's two other offensive linemen that are in the portal. There's an All-American lineman from Texas A&M, freshman All-American by the name of Matthew Wyckoff. And then there's an offensive lineman from Oklahoma State, Caleb Etienne, who entered the portal on the 14th of this month. So there's three guys, and you're wondering, okay, offensive lineman, what's going on? Well, Ethan White, the other offensive lineman that transferred to USC, who's going to be enrolling in the summer from the University of Florida, along with Michael Tarquin, there's a little smoke that maybe he's coming, maybe he's not. So we got to watch these movements that are happening. You have an offensive lineman, Cortland Ford, who's out. You got this Cameron Johnson, who's going to be visiting on the 21st. Very fluid situation. We'll see. We'll see what's going to be happening, but it's never dull during the off season.
One quick transfer note to add, Rick, is that Caleb Etienne is a veteran offensive lineman from Oklahoma State. He's entered the portal, and there's a thought that Mason Cobb could play a role in pulling him to USC. So that could be the replacement for Cortland Ford, through the Oklahoma State connection that USC's established via Mason Cobb.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And it's very intriguing that a guy like Bear Alexander, who, when that name came up, I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I remember watching him in the national championship game. This kid's a freshman, number 99, jumps out of the screen at 6'3", 305 pounds with 2 sacks in the national championship game, and he's going into the portal reportedly. So that would be a great opportunity. Add that to the line. And I think he's got 3 years of eligibility left, if I'm not mistaken. So interesting times happening here in the next 2 weeks. Stay tuned to Trojans Conquest Live to get the up-to-the-date information on what's happening, and tune in to check out Matt Zemek at Trojans Wire, because Matt's on top of it.
So, yes, just want to remind you one more time. We're trying to get, we got a lot going on in the background. I'm trying to patch in John Jackson. That's what I was doing on the phone earlier to our show. We have now joining us in the room as well. We have our favorite co-host, which is Tony Altimore. Tony is, if you guys knew earlier, he would always be on. He was with us, and we did the post-game show last year for the Trojans. But we have bringing him on right now. Tony, how you doing? Tony, you there?
I think Tony's on mute.
I'll wait for Tony to fix the situation. What do you guys think? So we're talking about the big click on for Helton was the fact they'd say that he had no Rolodex. That was the big phrase. That's the joke everyone had on the message boards when it came to getting assistance. Now, we had the Kliff Kingsbury thing, which was a big hit, and everyone's excited about it, but that fell through. And so what we're really seeing now, though, with Lincoln Riley is Lincoln Riley has been very successful, and he knows a lot of people. And one of those people are past players. And so when you have the ability to have a guy like Jalen Hurts, who all Trojan fans, unfortunately, are familiar with it from 2016, and you have him on your speed dial, it's pretty impressive, especially when you're trying to recruit, let's say, quarterbacks to your team. Any thoughts on Jalen Hurts stopping by practice this week?
Isn't that interesting that Jalen Hurts stopped by practice? We're talking practice. That could be a power move by Lincoln Riley, because there's this smoke about Dylan Raiola being crystal ball to Georgia on behalf of Steve Wiltfong with 24/7. He's back and forth, but it's like, okay, hey, he knows if he invites Jalen Hurts, he's in LA, it's Lincoln Riley, it's going to get into the news cycle. So maybe subliminally, all right, well, hey, you're not thinking about USC. Well, hey, look, Jalen Hurts, that's the guy who's in the Super Bowl, Heisman Trophy runner-up. He's coming out to LA, and he's going to come meet with the quarterbacks, and we're just going to talk, and he's going to get on camera. And guess what? There's a message to you, Dylan Raiola. You don't want to come here. You want to go to Georgia? All right, well, here's what's happening in LA. Just a thought. Matt, am I off? What do you think?
Not at all. And I think, just to connect this to Kliff Kingsbury, like Lincoln Riley, I know that like the old time USC culture is, student body right, and the legendary Heisman winning running backs this school produced from Mike Garrett in 65 through OJ, and then Anthony Davis, and then Charles White, Marcus Allen, Ricky Bell, like so many others in that period of time. But what was student body right is now quarterback you. Like Lincoln Riley is planting his flag, and he's making it clear. And I think the real news value of the Kingsbury hire is that, like, if you want to be a great quarterback and receive the best quarterback coaching and get the best preparation to be an elite professional prospect at quarterback, you come to USC. Nowhere else comes close. USC is now quarterback you. That's really the transformation that Lincoln Riley has created at Heritage Hall.
Yes, absolutely. And then also during the game, so it's a great time. I think Mansford said something about, it's a great time. Spring ball is a great time to impress the coaches, right? To get playing time, etc. Well, another great time to impress people, it would be the recruits for the 2024-25 class. And there were a number of recruits on the sideline. I was in the west end zone, and they were all lined up there watching the linemen doing some lineman drills. It was a great showcase. I think they said there were about 25,000 people at the game. Really nice to see. I know that they were expecting Taylor Tatum. Again, I saw DeAndre Carter. He's right there. He's the big guy right there in the middle. And a number of other recruits coming in. Rick, did you notice anything particular from the recruits?
Well, there was a list of recruits that were scheduled to be there, and Walter Matthews he's a tight end from Hiram, Georgia. He was there. Taylor Tatum, the number 2 running back from Longview, Texas. Also a couple of 3-star linemen were there as well. 3-star safety Braylon Conley from Humboldt, Texas was also there. A number of different, when we were leaving leaving the spring game, we noticed a bunch of St. John Bosco players that were there along with their coaches. So it was a well-attended spring game.
Any thoughts, Matt?
Not a whole lot to add. I have to duck out of here because it's dinner time in the Zemek household.
All right.
Yep. But hey, guys, awesome job. So much great details and insight into the spring game. Just keep rocking it here at Trojan Conquest Live.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, and remember, you guys can check Matt's work over on Trojans Wire. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. It's a great source daily for Trojan information, as well as around, they cover other sports like basketball throughout the season. So again, Matt, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Right on, Matt.
All right, Rick. So I'm sorry. I guess I'm thinking that both Tony and JJ might be having some trouble. So I guess we just move on. Hopefully they can join us when they get a moment. So another big moment during halftime. So when you get a Heisman Trophy, the player themselves receive their trophy in New York. And a lot of them have comments. They always take pictures right with it in bed with them or right next to them after the ceremony. But also the school gets a copy of the Heisman Trophy, and the Heisman Trust came out to present the trophy to Caleb Williams at halftime during the spring game. It was really amazing because I was able to see the game. I was right there at midfield and able to enjoy it and take some pictures. His whole family was there. What did you think about watching it as well, Rick?
Yeah, it was a special moment. I've never been, been involved in watching somebody actually receive their Heisman Trophy. So that was a first. And hey, the 3-play drive that Caleb participated in, I mean, that was Heisman worthy. He's ready to take it to the next level, and he's being challenged by Lincoln Riley and I'm sure by Kliff Kingsbury, but he wants to win a national championship. This is great. It's a personal accolade, but he is driving this bus, and everybody's following Caleb Williams, and they want to play for the national championship, and so that's what he would want to be measuring, in my opinion. And so this was great because it's taking a look back and it's taking time out, but it was pretty special, and it was great to see Brett Neal on there, Travis Dye, and some other teammates that were on the team last year supporting Caleb Williams. Tim, what were your thoughts, snapping these great pictures, by the way, watching this unfold in front of your eyes?
Well, I'm glad it's not my day job because I'm sure I would get fired. But it was really fun having the opportunity to take the pictures and be there just up close to a special moment for the university. And someone else. And one thing I got to remember is I know we talked a lot about the defense. And we focused on the defense. I don't want people to take for granted what this. If anybody, for instance, did not come out to the spring game, you guys are losing opportunities to see, one of the greatest, if not the greatest player we've had at USC. We'll see. His chapter is not over yet. He's up there with all the greats. He's already done what a lot of, 7 other Heismans have done. Let's see. Maybe he might be able to join Archie Griffin as the only player ever to win 2 Heisman trophies. And I know all of us fans are focused on, well, what about the defense? We feed into the narrative, but we need to start honoring the great players on offense as well. And obviously it's all going to start and end with Caleb Williams. Speaking of great players and Heisman trophies, I'm not going to go very long on this, but listen, I've been telling you, Charlie Baker, every single week. Now, this is the 7th time I've told you, make it happen. 4,781 days, and the man still doesn't have his trophy. You need to fix that as soon as possible.
Hey, Tim, speaking of Heisman Trophy, there was another Heisman Trophy USC winner that was in the building for the spring game, and that was Matt Leinart. And Matt Leinart was being interviewed at some point during the spring game, and they asked him, hey, you're kind of similar to Caleb Williams. You returned back to school for another season as a Heisman Trophy winner. What were your thoughts? What went into that? And he said, yeah, there was nerves. There was a lot of pressure. He didn't play well, he said, in the Notre Dame game until, that last drive. But there are higher expectations. And he mentioned that, there are going to be higher expectations for Caleb, but he's ready for them. He knows what's anticipated. They set the bar, and it's year 2. So you're going from 11 and 3 to trying to compete for that national championship, getting the college football playoff. So I thought that was interesting hearing Matt Leinart talk about that.
Yeah, he definitely has a great perspective on it. And this is a good issue comment from HR picking stuff. Remember, we have to emphasize the fact that USC is not throwing bags at freshmen, right, for inducements to come over. They're quickly showing USC as this week brought out some great news that Rick will be able to expound on in a moment about the fact on their NIL. But it's been made, the point's been made over and over again, is they are not going after freshmen, right? You're seeing these huge deals where allegedly, some people are thinking maybe there might be some money being promised to kids before they show up as an inducement, which is technically illegal under NIL. But this situation might be where he's looking at all the opportunities. It's just coincidence. Right before the transfer portal opens up again, they released the fact that they have 2 new NIL entities at the Trojan family. And Rick, what were the 2 that they just entered this week?
Yeah, so the 2 NIL collectives that were announced this week are on Thursday. It was announced that Victory Formation, and it's headed up by a financial planner, SC alumni by the name of Manuel Hernandez. He's an advisor to several former Trojan athletes. And it's also being headed up by Jeff McKay, grandson of the legendary USC coach John McKay. The group intends to function as a full-fledged NIL agency for USC athletes, tapping into a full roster of former SC athletes, not only to help find and facilitate endorsement deals and appearances, but also offer everything from content creation, mentorship opportunities, and financial literacy training and legal counsel. Also on Friday, House of Victory. It's sponsored by, endorsed by USC. It's a nonprofit, alumni-led board operated name, image, and likeness collective dedicated to providing USC student athletes NIL opportunities. It's founded by avid SC supporters and former Trojan greats. House of Victory is committed to providing a competitive edge for the incredible student athletes, athletic departments, and coaches. House of Victory is the first NIL sponsor of USC athletics, having signed a corporate partnership with Playfly Sports, USC's exclusive multimedia rights holder. The partnership affords House of Victory unique branding opportunities, trademark rights, and advertising across USC's platforms, including game day opportunities with the LA Coliseum and Galen Center for both women's and men's sports. Bottom line, USC took a look at this space, and they took their time watching what's happened the last year and a half since NIL has been approved for student athletes. And I believe they got it right. House of Victory has many former Trojan greats such as Anthony Davis, Rodney Peete, Baseball Renee, and Marcel Latchman, former Angels, Trojans, to name a few, a bunch of USC alums, business leaders. This is a huge program. When Lincoln Riley said last week that there's some cool opportunities that are going to be coming on board, yeah, I think he was talking about this. So you look at the timing, the synergy, Tim. You talk about the spring game coming up. It's no coincidence that the NIL collectives were announced on Thursday, Friday, spring game Saturday the 15th, transfer portal hitting the 15th to the 30th. It's all about synergy and creating this momentum moving forward to 2024. And yes, it's going to help recruiting. And like Lincoln, like Riley likes to say, time to get on the rocket ship. It's going to blast off. Don't let it leave without you. So some great news for USC. And again, they'll be competing in the space with NIL. It's not going to be like other programs paying high school kids. It's not that way. Tim, what are your thoughts on the NIL? It looks like maybe trying to get JJ on the hotline. So while Tim is, I think, talking with JJ, let's talk about, let me give you some more perspective of what we saw at the spring game. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Love that you're tuning in here. One of the things that, in terms of defense, we mentioned earlier, Jacoby Covington, he was all over the place. It was great to see his size and athleticism. At the end of the first half, he picked off Miller Moss right in front of me, and they originally awarded a touchdown, which I couldn't believe because there was a scramble for the ball, and Jacoby Covington came up with it going against Dorian Singer. And they announced in the spring game. If you were there, probably you heard it, but touchdown Dorian Singer. It wasn't. And Lincoln Riley overruled it because he took a look at it and they awarded the interception a little bit later to Jacoby Covington. At the end of the game, interesting enough, Malachi Nelson kind of threw the ball, maybe like a freshman would, into triple coverage to newly position player Carson Tabarachi, who moved from linebacker to tight end this spring. He was trying to get a ball to Carson, and Jacoby Covington high-pointed it, picked it off. So not only did he pick off Miller Moss, but he picked off Malachi Nelson to end the game, and that was a great moment in terms of the defense showing the new talent, the athleticism, the skill. Now, obviously, Jacoby Covington was here last year, but it looks like he is going to be stepping in to compete for, let's say, the shutdown corner, kind of like Mekhi Blackman from Colorado had last year. Christian Roland Wallace, the transfer from Arizona, was unable to play in the spring game, but he is also going to be looking to become a shutdown corner along with Covington. So those two guys on the corners looking outstanding. Also, Damani Jackson figuring to get into the rotation, into the mix. But exciting to see those guys. The secondary is pretty stacked with Kalen Bullock. And then Christian Pierce, 3-star safety out of Rancho Cucamonga. He's getting a lot of run during spring ball. This guy hit the hole and hits escaping me. It was a running back. I want to say it was Darwin Barlow. Yes, it was Darwin Barlow. And Darwin Barlow is a fourth-year senior, and he's a veteran running back. And that opened up some eyes that, hey, this guy can make plays. And so it was great to see Christian Pierce get an interception and get a run back after that as well. Anthony Lucas looks huge. You can see the improvements in the personnel that they have through the transfer portal on defense, especially the front seven. The thing that concerns me, and let me know what you think in the chat, this is why Bear Alexander is a must-get opportunity, is we have 13 defensive linemen that are on the roster right now. Some are there's 2 guys that might be going to the portal. We don't know that they're in the portal, but they may come back. We have 2 guys that haven't enrolled yet. They're incoming freshmen, but 7 out of the 13 are redshirt seniors. So these are guys like, Solomon Tuliapupu. We have Dejon Benton, Kion Bars, Earl Barquette, Jack Sullivan, and Tyrone Taleni. And these guys have got 1 more year. So we have to load up. That's why it's critical moving into 2024, this recruiting class, before USC goes to the Big Ten. We need more defensive linemen, rush ends, linebackers. Tim?
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that, Rick. I'm just helping JJ get set up. I messed up and gave him the wrong information. So, but I'm proud to announce that for the second time on our show, we have the great honor of having a wide receiver at USC whose father coached USC, coached running backs like Charles White and Marcus Allen, Ricky Bell, amongst many others. His son played John Jackson III, played for the Trojans, has his degree, and I believe is finished his master's degree. He is currently in the portal, and we're hoping that as soon as John lands somewhere, we'll get the scoop on that one. I'm proud to introduce you guys to one of my childhood favorites, and definitely a person I watched a lot, John Jackson, wide receiver, also dual sport player. He also played baseball at USC alongside Rodney Peete and guys like Aaron Boone. So how you doing, John? JJ, how you doing?
Well, I'm good, guys. I'm hanging in there. Of course, you guys know, like, many Trojans, that I'm still trying to come back from having a stroke, but I feel well on the way, and hopefully I can be ready for September, just like the Trojans I think will be.
JJ, welcome, man. It's great to see you. incredible day yesterday. We got to hang out with JJ at the spring game, and it was an incredible day. We were able to get on the field and get some pictures and meet a lot of different Trojans. JJ is one of a kind, well loved by the entire USC Trojan family. And we kind of talked about the spring game and our thoughts. JJ, you played a number of spring games. You covered a number of spring games for, Prime Ticket and Fox Sports, and obviously, USC. What were your thoughts yesterday on what you saw?
Well, the one thing and I've learned this over the years, is when you watch spring games and try to analyze them, it never can be totally good or totally bad, because one side's going to win, the offense or the defense. If they make a great tackle or sack the quarterback, oh man, our defense is back. It's great, and we have problems on the offensive line. If a receiver drops a pass or a defensive back knocks it away, oh, it's great coverage by the defense. The defense is ahead of the offense. Yesterday it was hard to tell, but I was impressed by the defense. I think the defense might be a half a step ahead of the offense, which is a good sign for USC, because as you know, this offense, I don't care how you slice it, it's going to be explosive. They have so many weapons. Of course, Caleb being at the forefront of that, and the fact that he's coming back, and his mindset, and I know him personally, and his mindset and his drive, his work ethic, and all that kind of good stuff. That's the guy you want at the helm of this USC program, because he is going to strive and try to lead this team toward a national championship and not be satisfied with the Heisman. Although he's grateful, and I can tell you, and from people I know, including my son, that he's not satisfied. He's not satisfied unless this team wins. He's the perfect guy you want as a leader of a program, which I think is going to bode well for him next year when it comes draft time. That I think that, he's the first guy off the board, just sort of like similar to a Bryce Young, in terms of having all the tools, the accuracy, the success, the long-term success, and arm strength and all the rest of that, to probably be the number one guy off the board next year. Just like Bryce Young, I think will be the number one guy off the board this year. And if he is, I know that's well-deserved also, because my son played with him and I got to know his dad very well. He is, a great kid, a great leader, and, he's proven it. He's earned his stripes, and he's proved it at every level, whether it be high school, college with Alabama. I mean, he's spectacular. I think that Caleb is just, they're two totally different quarterbacks, but I'm talking about in terms of intangibles, they have a lot of similarities between the two, which will make them great quarterbacks, not only at college, but the next level is also. And my expectations, like the Trojans' expectations this year, are for this team to be great, because they have great leadership. They won't, Caleb knows how to lead a team when times get tough. He's the one guy you want to try to lead them out of the tough times. And so, like I said, I was excited yesterday hanging out with you guys, but also, watching how this team is developed. I couldn't agree with you guys anymore in terms of there is definitely improvement on the defense. But I also think there's some significant, I'm sure you guys talked about some significant, improvements on the offense as well, which is scary considering this offense that put up so much points together last year. The interesting thing will be what kind of identity does this team have? Is this going to be a team that's going to play like the Golden State Warriors and just try to outscore you, or is this going to be add a little defense to this team, which will make it dominant? And when this team does get turnovers, you just get the feeling that, okay, they're just gonna score and answer, and points off turnovers will be a big statistic for next year, and all those things that will make this team great. But I'm looking. I'm almost ready to pack my bag for a national championship, and I'd really look forward to that. And trust me, if there's any way I can get on that flight, even if I'm in the baggage, I'll make it there.
JJ, let me ask you a question. You were on the you had a piece. You were on Trojans Live with Jordan Moore, Stuart Cravens, Sean Cody, and Cody Kessler, and share with us what you were talking about. I believe you were talking about Alex Grinch and the defense.
Yeah, well, my question for Sua and Sean was, I'm a Alex Grinch supporter, and by that I mean, he had, the USC Trojans statistically had one of the worst tackling defenses in the country. There's no question about that. It's a statistic that is true. But my question to them, which I don't even know if I got a straight answer, but my question to them was, how can you be one of the worst tackling defenses in the country if your defensive coordinator doesn't put you in the right place to miss those tackles? So they were one of the worst in the country, but guess what? Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator, put them in position to miss those tackles, which led to that horrible stat. But I do not think it will be duplicated this year. And anybody that's not an Alex Grinch fan, if they can answer that question for me, I would love to hear the answer, because I think that Alex Grinch did a great job last year in terms of putting guys in position to make plays. I mean, I don't know how many times we called Tuli Pelotu's name last year. I mean, it's going to make him a first, if not a second round draft choice, because he put him in position to make plays. And Tuli made him last year, of course, as you know, which that's what I'm looking forward with this defense, because I think they have some key pieces that will improve the defense from a year ago, and I can't wait to see it. But yeah, I didn't get a straight answer on if the defensive coordinator puts you in position to make tackles and you miss them, I don't know how you blame the coordinator. Isn't that a player problem? How is that a coordinator problem?
Yeah, I agree. It's been well publicized.
It's not like Grinch could put on pads himself and go hit somebody, but I'm sure if he could, he would. And and when you hear the players even admit to, it's not Alex Grinch's fault, it's our fault. Heard several players say that in off season and how they felt guilty for putting Grinch in such a terrible position, where a lot of the Trojan familyhood, Trojan quote unquote expert followers are following him and blaming him for a defense that did not tackle well a year ago. They were 119th in the country, which is not good. But how can you blame the coach when you allegedly have a defense full of 4- and 5-star guys? If that would have happened in high school, would they let them take their stars away? No, they would not let anybody take their stars away. They would have said, no, I earned that star. Well, hey, if you're a 4- and 5-star defensive player, play like one too. That's all we're asking.
Yeah, the poor tackling has been well publicized, and no one, you didn't look out any further than to see Caleb Williams during that Cotton Bowl battling. During the championship game, the Pac-12 championship game, battling with that hamstring injury that he had, and the fact that they just couldn't stop the Utah defense. There's one in particular where they could easily have made the stop on third down. They didn't. The guy breaks it for a long run. Tackling, again, is not the job of the defensive coordinator. They did publicize a lot the fact that they thought that it would be the worst roster that they had while they were at USC. This is not to disparage any great Trojans that played on the team, but there was clearly some need to upgrade, especially in the front seven. And I think they've done that. LFG, thank you for the comment. John Jackson Sr. is one of my favorite USC players of his era. This is actually John Jackson Jr. His father was a coach at USC under John Robinson.
And I look like a senior. I just look like a senior.
And Senior was responsible for recruiting 2 Heisman Trophy winners, JJ. Was it Charles White and Marcus Allen?
Charles White and Marcus Allen were 2 guys. He did a pretty good job of recruiting and giving them the ball enough so they could become Heisman Trophy winners. So, yeah, I'm really proud of my dad and what he meant to USC and still means to Charlie and Ricky and all those great guys, Dwight Ford and all those great players. It was pretty cool as a kid being able to go in the USC locker room and say hello to Marcus Allen or Charles White after the game. That was a pretty cool experience. So, yeah, I feel lucky and blessed.
And JJ, you told me who used to babysit you. So you guys, those of you that are big fans of USC, you're going to know his name right away. Who used to babysit you during the practices?
Oh, Tim Teslone. And trust me, it was babysit because he had to work at it. I'd run around on the practice field and had a all access pass, and my dad would talk trash to the players and say, "My son is going to beat you in a race," and then they'd have to race me after practice. And I can honestly say in third grade I beat Ricky Bell. Now, did he give me a little bit of a break? Yeah, I would say so. After a hard practice, I don't think he felt like racing a 12-year-old. But it happened, and I won.
Jason Muth on defense. Number 0 is Corey Foreman, and on offense that would be Marshawn Lloyd, the new tailback from South Carolina. And
Tim,
then go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I just noticed we're a little over an hour into the program. We're talking about the spring game here on Trojans Conquest Live, and we have yet to talk about Tackett Curtis. So, Tim, what was your impression seeing Tackett Curtis, the linebacker from Manny, Louisiana, for the first time up close?
Yeah, I was shooting on the opposite side. I was taking those pictures of Riley and together with Nelson, but there was a play down the field. I don't know if it was Brown or if it was Zach Branch, but someone put a move on him, which kind of I looked like a freshman. He didn't really break down. He didn't really, he didn't square up. He didn't break down, and he just whiffed. I mean, now listen. Let me say this as well. That's going to happen to the best of defenders when they go up against Zachariah Branch. But as a whole, he looked fat. He looked big as advertised, and he looked fast. He was getting a lot of coaching up from players on the field as well as the coaches. So I'm sure the learning curve is quite difficult. But man, he looks like he has the talent and the potential to be something great here at USC. He reminds me a lot of some of our great bigger linebackers we've had in the past. What do you think, JJ? Did you get a chance to check him out?
Well, one more thing that I wanted to just add to this is that yesterday in watching the scrimmage, I just thought of this guy. Sorry, is that I did not see a lot of stunts and blitzes, and they basically let the defense play against the offense mainly with straight defenses. Not a lot of stunts and twists or new things that they haven't seen. Of course, there was not too much game planning on either side for the opponent. I mean, the players know each other, but when you're sort of handcuffed into not, using some surprises, let's say Alex Grinch, if he would have been able to use safety blitzes and things of that nature, from what I could tell, there weren't a lot of surprises yesterday. They just sort of let the players play 11 on 11 and made the best man win. And
it is usually very vanilla on offense and on defense. You're right. There wasn't a lot of stunting going on, twists. But there were 2 guys that get home. It was nice to see. So a big story has been Solomon Tuilapupu, who's been injured. He was a linebacker that came from Mater Dei years ago, and he had a foot injury that just seemed to, and one injury after another just kept him off the field. He was able to play some significant steps last year, but in this game, he was able to get to the quarterback. He was one of the people at a sack. Also, Dejon Benton was a big Dejon Benton was also able to record a sack. But I agree with you. It just seemed like the defenses were pretty vanilla, mixed in with a lot of guys that weren't all scholarship guys out there. You guys you saw some weird numbers in coverage yesterday. So that usually means that those guys are usually not scholarship players. I like these pictures here. What do you guys think of this picture? This is one of my favorite pictures of the whole day. Right before it, you have this is the starting center, Didich, who moved over from guard. He just kind of looked there, taking it all in. This is obviously going to be his last spring game. And then he's there for the Heisman ceremony, but his buddy, his predecessor at center, Nealon, came over, and they had a really long conversation until one of the coaches told me to get out of there. But I was able to get a nice picture. So what do you think they're talking about in this picture?
Defensive fronts and what they're seeing up front, and any type of different looks that they might have got that are unfamiliar from practice, because as you guys know, the center and the guard usually makes a lot of calls on the offense, any adjustments. So I'm sure they were talking about anything new that they happen to see of course, they probably weren't briefed that there's going to be a bunch of vanilla defenses. They had to figure that out themselves, and I'm sure they were happy after the game that there weren't a lot of stunts because it probably made it easier on their line calls. But that just goes to show. And by the way, Solomon Tulipupu, I don't even know how to say it, but
you said it right.
Solo, as I know him, I consider us on a first name basis, him and I. He's a great guy. I wish you had got a picture of his bald head because he cut off his locks, and I can't believe he cut his hair off. He had extremely long hair, and I was sort of sad to see it go, but I'm sure I'll get a chance to rub his head at some point this season.
Yeah, I got a picture, but it didn't make the final cut, but I got a couple pictures of that, yeah.
I think Nealon and Didich were talking about tacos. Hey, man, let's go get some tacos up on Sunset after this game, man. I think I can take down 6 or 7. What do you think there, Nealon? Oh, you're working out for the draft. You probably only have 4 or 5.
Right.
Well, I don't think Tony's gonna be able to join us tonight. So Tony fans, hopefully we get him on the show sometime soon. It's been great, John. JJ, if you have anything you wanted to share with us or talk about, anything added, Rick, this would be a great time just to throw in the last 2 cents. I think we are well over an hour, but anytime I could be here with JJ and talk, I'm willing to sit and talk about it.
Yeah, I heard there's somebody that entered the transfer portal again today, right?
Yeah,
from USC. JJ, are you talking from USC?
Yes.
Yes, this was like I think he's like 5th on the depth chart quarterback, and his name escapes me right now. So there's Caleb, there's Miller Moss, there's Malachi Nelson, there's Jake Jensen, who had a few reps in the spring game. But this young man came from Colorado. He was kind of like a preferred walk-on. I want to say his last name's Jorgensen. I don't think that's correct, but that's who I heard entered in the portal today as a graduate. So if somebody's in the chat that can correct me, I don't know it off the top of my head, but that's who I heard, JJ.
Yeah, that's late breaking news, right? Because I think they just came across Facebook or something, and so yeah, I think it's new news.
Well, then we had a question here from so LBC Rob's asking, what expectations did you have coming in that was met? So I guess he's talking about the players, and same other way around. What did you see that you should have, Rick, or what did you not see that you should have, Rick?
Okay, LBC Rob, one of our loyal viewers. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. What expectation did you have coming in that was met? For me, I wanted to see. I was excited to see all the transfers and the early enrollees because this was year 2. It was really Lincoln Riley's first full recruiting class. The quality of player, you could see it on the field compared to last year, where there was the starters and then you had the secondary players, contributors, role players, whatever you want to call. We didn't have a lot of depth. Now you look at the depth that we have on the D line, the front 7, the secondary, the running back room, the wide receivers, obviously quarterback. There's some outstanding playmakers. I mean, you saw the secondary. Christian Roland Wallace didn't even play, but Jacoby Covington, who had played in a few games last year, he showed out. And then this Christian Pierce, he had an outstanding game. And Max Williams was solid. And you had Tackett Curtis, Kion Bars, Anthony Lucas. So the guys that are starting this year, and Jack Sullivan for that matter, he's a big dude. So the guys that are starting this year, and we have depth. We don't have a lot of depth. We don't have tremendous depth, but it is growing. And that is going to help out. And you're going to see in the first 6 games of the year, I anticipate when I hear Lincoln Riley talk about situational mastery, it's got to come from the coaching staff. And I know that he's going to be looking at it. He's going to be looking at game planning. How are we going to navigate this last year in the Pac-12, which is going to have a lot of surprises, right? And there's going to be injuries. So you have to get as many guys as you can get reps. And there's not a lot of drop off between this first team and the secondary team, Tim, this year, which is very exciting. What do you think about what you saw out there?
You hit on everybody. The people that I was most surprised by were the freshman running backs, because I mean the people we talked about that showed out. I either for one reason, like Covington was, I was really impressed with him, but he was coming on strong last year. And all the people you just named. I knew Zach Branch was going to be amazing, but when you see those guys come in at running back from both of them from Texas and play the way they did, it looks like a new, we might have a new Thunder and Lightning. We'll see. I don't want to put that on any young people, but I mean, I think they have the ability to do that. And then really quickly, JJ, did you have any one particular player that stuck out to you?
No specific players, but I was anxious, even though I'm a receiver and I hate to say this, but I was anxious to see what kind of running game they could establish. And I think, as you said, we saw some bright spots in the running game, which, is big because of the loss at running back from last year. And I think that's a big key. And I thought we saw some, good run play execution yesterday, which of course, as you know, when you get there's going to be a time in the fourth quarter of games this year that you're going to go into the fourth quarter with a lead, and you're going to need what they call the 5 or 6 minute offense, which is run time off the clock, keep the ball away from the opposition, and win the game with the run game.
Yeah, I think I'm getting kind of worried because my big hope was getting Ethan White, and maybe we'll hit on this next show. We were going to talk about today, but we're running out of time. But it looks like when they're going into the portal and they're looking at offensive linemen, I'm sure you can never have too many offensive linemen. But there's this weird kind of smoke going around about Ethan White. He still hasn't, I believe, reported to SC. I could be wrong. I don't want to spread rumors, but that's everything I'm hearing through the rumor mill. Nothing's confirmed there. And they are looking, it looks like they're looking for more offensive line. Again, that's a position where you want to stockpile anyway, but I'm interested to see how what happens with Ethan White if he is going to be coming to SC, because that's what I'm talking about. Salting away games, JJ. As much as we talk about the gaffes that we had at the end of that game, if we could just pinned our ears back and just ran out of that end zone, right, instead of getting stuffed, I mean, we're talking about a whole different game. I don't think they have enough time to get those points in order to win the game. Thank you so much, by the way, Ferris, for the $4.99 super chat. USC and Michigan are preseason ranked 1 and 2. Break down these offenses. Who's stronger? Why? So I'm assuming you're saying 1 and 2 offenses. I don't think they're ranked 1 and 2 as far as a preseason poll is concerned. But I can see that. I don't know a whole lot about Michigan, but I do remember last year watching 2 of the best running backs in football with Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. You guys also have that one was always a very strong and probably veteran offensive line. I don't know who your departures are, who there's not. And then I look to see that JJ McCarthy's probably going to return and continue where he left off. You guys, any thoughts on Michigan? Oh, by the way, so USC, yeah, we'll be number 1 because I'm telling you, we have Caleb Williams. We have discussing receiver room. If you want to check that out, look at our last episode. We went into depth. 2 episodes ago, we went into depth about the wide receiver room. Feel free to take a look at that. And then we just talked about how we're gushing about our running backs. Our running backs are at least 4 or 5 deep. I'm feeling very comfortable with at this point. Any thoughts, you guys?
JJ, what are your thoughts on the running backs?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% about the running backs. I think that, it's a very, very strong group. And remember, and it won't happen this year, I don't think, but going forward, when we enter the Big Ten, you are going to have strong running games. Because last time I checked, anytime you play an away game in the Big Ten, it's going to be cold, raining, snowing, etc. And you got to be able to function in those weather conditions, not necessarily this year, but next year. That will be a factor that you have to consider. How are you going to win games in bad weather conditions? And usually throwing the ball around a lot is not the way to do it. You have to have a strong run game, which it looks like the Trojans are slowly building and hopefully can develop a strong reputation so that when they get ready to go into Ohio State or Michigan, it's with a strong run game and a threat to be able to maintain a balanced offense and things of that nature, because we're recruiting better in those areas, which of course where a lot of offensive linemen, running backs are produced, but also we're able to function in those weather conditions in the championship months November and December when you have to win down the stretch. It's always been the mantra of USC that you have to win down the stretch. Notre Dame and UCLA are usually in those games, but now you're going to have to be prepared to win down the stretch against teams that survive in poor weather conditions. And so that's going to be another thing that is probably on the forefront of Lincoln Riley's mind is how can I shape this squad to be able to play in weather conditions? You're not going to be able to practice in those weather conditions, of course, here in sunny California. So you're going to have to, establish a team that can play in those type of conditions because that's going to be the championship months when it's time to, make or break Rose Bowl, Cotton Bowl, or whatever, hopefully national championship games. So you have to be ready to play in those type of conditions.
And then Bart Willoughby's comment here is right in line with kind of that, saying SC's has the best offense in college football. They don't need a top 25 defense to win the championship. And if you've been listening to us, Bart, we've been saying that, Rick and I, we're looking at probably maybe a top 50. If we can become a top 50 defense, we're going to be making waves. I think we could probably even make it to the playoffs with a 50 defense with where our offense is. If we're talking we're a top 30 defense, then I say we're competing, legitimately competing for a national championship.
And JJ mentioned it earlier that USC was ranked number 119 in the country in defensive yards per play given up, 6.3 yards per play, abysmal, really, last year. That's not going to get it done, obviously. Right around the top 50, you're looking at about 5.1, 5.2 yards per carry. Basic bottom line, USC needs to shave off a little bit more than 1 yard per defensive play to be competitive. And if you look at who's on the field, second year of the program, I think that's a realistic goal. I think USC can achieve it. They're going to have to because they're going to have Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams kicking in the behind and leading the way. This is a golden opportunity, and that's why you have a lot of these transfers that are coming to USC because they're starting to see the magic. They're sensing the buzz. It's happening. This is year 2. Transfer portal is opening up. I think there's a cocaine bear out there, Bear Alexander. Just joking. But there's a big bear out there. You got Jalen Hurts coming last week, the NIL Collectives. You got Heisman Trophy being presented at halftime. You got Kliff Kingsbury. You know what? This happened 20 years ago, JJ. You were on the sidelines. You were on the broadcast. Talk about the similarity as we move into year 2 with Lincoln Riley that you saw with Pete Carroll.
Yeah, Pete Carroll. I mean, people, of course, recognize Pete Carroll is, if not, he's definitely one of the best and probably the best head coach the USC's ever had. People forget, though, that he struggled through his first year. I think it was barely above 500, guys, right? It was
correct. Yeah.
7 or something.
Yeah. 6 to 7.
Yeah. He never, of course, had another year like that, but it was a plan similar to this is why Pete Carroll, it took him a couple years to do it, which now, of course, at that time, it seemed like it was going to take a long time, but he turned the program around as we now see in such a short amount of time. And I think Lincoln Riley's on the same pace, so to speak, to develop a national championship contending team. And there's no question that this team will be competing for a national championship.
Yeah,
it's just fun to be a part of it and watch it happen.
Yeah, I'm with a lot of people. Like I was just watching USCJ earlier today. He was talking about, he's been on the national championship wagon way before me, and I'm just starting to see it. What people don't realize is USC literally has to get in its own way not to win national champions. In my opinion, the USC literally has to stop itself with the recruiting base that USC has, with the tradition, the heritage, with this great university. We literally, like other universities, have to stop ourselves from winning. And all of a sudden, when Bone came in with Folt, all this momentum that we're getting as far as the athletic department has completely been modernized to what has been working in the SEC with Alabama's, in the Big Ten with the Ohio States. There's this, if you remember when Lincoln Riley was hired, he talked about an alignment, right, in order to be successful. And it's all, we're starting to see, I bet you they knew a lot of this stuff that we're just starting to see piecing together, the NIL collectives that are coming out that we could talk about in a minute. And just the coaching. And now we're talking about the support staff, but now we're talking about, just like what Nick Saban was doing, we're talking about NFL head coach analysts. And that's just the next step we're taking. Rick, do you want to kind of move over into the talk about NIL?
Well, we kind of touched upon it earlier, and JJ, jump in if you'd like to, talk about NIL. As we mentioned earlier, the victory formation and House of Victory were announced. They ran a 2-minute video on the House of Victory, but this is well thought out, supported NIL collectives that aren't competing, but they're adding to the opportunities for student athletes. I mean, you got Victory Formation with John McKay's grandson, and then a financial planner that supports a bunch of USC athletes. And then you've got, House of Victory with Rodney Peete, with Matt Barkley, John David Booty, and a host of other influential sports and business USC alums, all working together to provide the best opportunity for student athletes here at USC across all sports, not just football. JJ, anything you'd like to add?
Well, yeah, also with that group of House of Victory, Chris Hale, the cornerback, paid for the Buffalo Bills. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the 4 Super Bowls that he lost.
Oh man, you're brutal.
And also how I would terrorize him in practice. I don't know how he has any confidence left, but he is part of House of Victory and a very good friend of mine. He's been a lifelong friend of mine, and I love him to death. And yeah, I think that the USC fans need to understand that this is the way of the future with these House of Victory and the collectives. And I'm proud to say that my daughter was part of that advertisement, yep. Which was pretty cool. He was a proud dad watching her talk about the House of Victory and all those different organizations that you named that are 100% legal, 100% above board. It's not going to a kid's, high school senior class and sliding him an envelope under the table and none of that kind of stuff. It's 100% above board. And the way that USC is going to have to function, if we're going to be able to compete nationally on that stage with the Alabamas, the Georgias, and the Floridas, and all those schools, because in my opinion, they're way ahead of us. We're trying to win this race by even though we spotted them 400 meters, we're trying to come back and make a major comeback to just be competitive with those schools in the South, in the SEC.
Good point. For those of you who don't know, JJ's daughter is a great soccer player on the women's soccer team at USC. I believe she wears number, is it 88?
She wears number 80 like her brother.
Number 80 like her brother. Okay, number 80 like her brother.
Like her dad did in the NFL. So.
And weren't you 82 before you were 1, JJ? I think you were 82 when you first got to SC.
No, this is embarrassing for me to say, but I was number 41.
41. 41.
That shows you where I was on the roster. They might choose the jerseys. I was 41. So please anybody don't bring up any freshman pictures of me standing on the sideline with 41. That's embarrassing. I'm trying to put those days behind me.
I like this statement. Kingsbury will bring some passing concepts to the table that the team may have lacked in recent years. It'll be exciting to see how they mesh everything together, and I think it'll benefit both parties, meaning that I think he's alluding to the fact that they're going to mesh together. You have Kingsbury and Rise offenses. Now, JJ, do you see that? Do you think that being a positive? Is that possible to do, or do you think that it could cause problems?
Well, I'll tell you what I first thought when the announcement was first made is, I mean, Lincoln Riley's a great head coach. There's no argument, nothing you can say about what he's done or is going to do. But for him to bring on an NFL head coach, think about it. You have to be pretty humble and comfortable within your own skin to be able to make a move like that. To hire or approve a hiring of a NFL head coach to because it's going to make your overall team better, and even you might have to bend a little bit, with another person that is going to have verbal input in an offense that you already are running and that's been effective. It's been effective at the college level, no question about it. That's what got him the head coaching job at USC, was that dynamic offense. So, how humble do you have to be to make that move? People got to think of that. This is not just, hey, just pick up somebody off the corner. This is hiring a head coach from the NFL to come join you. And of course, bring new ideas they can add on. But you're, from the outside looking in, people, and trust me, Lincoln, I mean, just look at the head coaching job at USC. I'll tell you, if I ever got that job, my ego would be so big you guys couldn't fit me in the screen. Okay? So I'm telling you, for him to put his ego aside, be humble enough to bring on a person with that kind of knowledge that, he's never worked with before. It's not, it's not like hiring your best friend from way back. This is hiring a guy that was in line for the job that you currently hold. That takes a lot of humility to me.
JJ, that is an excellent point that you bring up about humility, being humble, because, I mean, we all know about Pete Carroll and the alleged, let's say, difference in opinion he had with Norm Chow. Norm Chow was a well-respected offensive coordinator, and he was a little bit older in age, and everybody remembers 55-19 and who was the architect of that.
That's right.
And then the next year, he's not here, right? And so Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin were ascended into co-coordinators, and we saw what happened on fourth and short in the 2006 national championship against Texas. That wasn't Norm Chow. That was Lane Kiffin and Sark. And so who knows what happened between them, but there was a situation where, hey, he was here for 3 years, Norm Chow, and all of a sudden he's not.
And I do agree. I mean, I think you hit on something there, Rick. And I like this last point by Mansford. He says, I think it's been a benefit to both parties because he's talking about the concepts. They both come from the Mike Leach tree, and so they're gonna be probably speaking some of the similar language together. But I think both parties can take a little bit from each other. So I'm interested to see what kind of baby they can make from together as they start this new offense. And then we have some negativity again from HR saying betting on Grinch is like betting on the Jets to win the Super Bowl. I think, some people need to realize as fast as this thing came together last year, we were a struggling team 2 years ago, especially on the defense side of the ball. Why don't you give the man at least a full year of his own roster to bring in and 1 year to install his defense. And now we'll see what he could do in year two. Tight end Delay, thank you for always being here. Offense starts on the line and starts with the center. Big shoes indeed. Yeah, but I think Big Dedich can do that. Nealon was awesome. Everyone remembers the Nealon nudge that saved us in the Oregon State game. And all the, like JJ was talking about with you're in charge of the line calls. But as being a guard, like JJ talked about, and knowing the fact that he used to be a center, I think the transition should be pretty smooth. And then finally, Rick, your Cocaine Bear comment is getting a lot of action. It's everyone wants to ask about, Bear Alexander. And I will tell you guys, if Bear Alexander is going to signal something, it won't be as much the fact that it's the player, because he's a great player. Rick, you told me he got 2 sacks in the championship game last year.
Yeah.
It also signals this. If there's one spot we're usually deficient in here in Southern California, and there are the exceptions, there are the outliers, but the one thing you hear out west that usually you have trouble with is getting those big defensive linemen. If we're going into the South and we can show with our NIL and with our coach and with what we have going here at USC that we can go in and we can pull 5-star guys from the South on our defensive line, well, guess what? It's starting to sound a heck of a lot like those Pete Carroll years. Any thoughts, you guys?
JJ, what are your thoughts?
No, I agree 100%. And sometimes you got to look back at some of the players that were significant players at USC that were from the East Coast, the South, and those type of places. A guy named Chip Banks was a pretty good linebacker. I think that we needed that piece. And he was an East Coast guy. And, there's a lot of guys. I can't go through all of them, but there's a lot of guys that have come from the South that we were in bidding wars with Alabama, Georgia, Texas, teams like that you have to win. Otherwise, it might change the dynamic of USC football history because some of these players were great players that we were able to secure from the South.
JJ, you're going to get a text right about now or within the hour. There was one key defensive lineman you were on stage with yesterday. How can we forget the great Sean Cody? Sean Cody was like,
he's too young.
He was like he was 20 years ago, like the top defensive lineman in high school recruiting who was committed to Notre Dame.
That means I have to give credit to his high school, Los Altos. And me being from Bishop Vermont, I would never do that.
Man. You can't give respect to those south of the 60 freeway?
No.
Oh my gosh, man. Oh, wow. Gotta go north to La Puente.
I'm trying to get used to St. John Bosco being good.
No, but when I was talking South, Rick, I wasn't talking about southern part of the Southern California. I'm talking about the South. But yeah, I get you.
No,
he's the exception to the rule.
I understand that. I was talking about the 60 freeway. We're talking about Bishop Vermont, Los Altos, and Hacienda Heights. There's the 60 freeway that divides it. JJ knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that means I'd have to acknowledge Long Beach Wilson actually tied – not Long Beach Wilson. Wilson High School actually tied Bishop Vermont. See, I have to acknowledge that because I got a couple of friends that if they heard this, they'd say, hey, you didn't mention me. So here's the and Dan Akins, Travis Akins and Dan Akins, yeah. Wilson, you guys tied us, but you guys are nowhere in the spectrum of Bishop Vermont football.
Oh, JJ.
Next, you're going to have me acknowledge St. Paul, another school, Pius X.
Out of Santa Fe Springs.
That's right. I can't give those schools credit.
Oh my goodness, Wilson High School in Long Beach. Come on, man. They got a water polo team and a baseball team. They don't play football at Wilson.
They're in Fullerton, right?
Who's that?
Yeah, there's two Wilsons. There's Long Beach Wilson, and there's one over there down a little farther out in Orange County.
No, there's Hacienda Heights Wilson.
Hacienda Heights.
There you go. And there's Long Beach Wilson.
Yeah, I can't acknowledge those guys. Otherwise, I have to give Dwayne Washington some credit for holding me to one catch in the game against Los Altos. I can't acknowledge those things.
Did either one of you guys see Tyrone Taleni? And I saw Solomon Byrd, and it looked like he had his jersey. He was in street clothes. I don't think he played.
Yeah, Solomon Byrd didn't play. Neither did Tyrone Taleni. So I think they were looking to get more guys, the transfers, the early enrollees. They're getting them reps, kind of like the mentality with Caleb Williams, one series, go ahead and sit. We know what you can do. Let's give Miller Moss and Malachi Nelson some chance with the offense, get them some valuable reps. Lincoln mentioned about that in his post-game interview, that it's more valuable to get these guys live reps, and rightly so.
Okay, and then Oscar Huerta says, in my opinion, the future quarterback Nelson has underperformed and isn't living up to the 5-star prospect. Okay, so remember he's coming off of surgery. It was on his non-throwing arm, but he's probably a little bit rusty. He's probably a bit nervous. You know what I mean? There could be a million things, but I can tell you that he is a great. Matter of fact, I was listening to John Walker, defensive back during the Pete Carroll years on USCJ show, and he was talking exactly about that. And I watched him play against St. John Bosco in the playoffs 2 years ago. Believe me when I tell you, this guy can make all of the throws. Rick, you made the point we were watching you say, wow, he's faster. He is. He's in person. He's quicker than I remember him being. He's growing, and he's all of 6'4" for sure. He's building out. He's going to get bigger. You can always tell the freshmen because they're not quite as thick, right? But he's going to get bigger. He's going to get better, and give him a break. He's just coming off surgery, so I don't know how much throwing he's been doing, but if you ask me, whatever you've seen or whatever you've heard, I think we'll be just fine with Nelson.
Yeah, again, coming off an injury, labrum, that's going to take time. You got to get your mentality right as well, and you're learning an offense. He's going to be fine. I mean, just case in point, Arch Manning was reported didn't have a good outing in his spring game, and that's the number one player in the country. So Malachi Nelson, this kid's a special talent. He's only going to get better, and he's in the room with Caleb Williams, Miller Moss, Lincoln Riley, and Kliff Kingsbury. So,
and real quick, and for those people that have not played college football, going from high school football to the USC practice field is the equivalent of going from roller skates to the 55 freeway. There is no comparison to high school football. I mean, when you go to USC, you have to play against these players. It is going so fast. And I'm telling you from experience, things are moving so fast, it's almost impossible to step onto the field and be able to adapt to the speed, especially what the quarterbacks have to deal with the reads and all those type of things. It's totally different than high school. High school, you can see it's slow compared to college football. It's slow compared to passing league and all those other things that people try to, make an equivalent. It's just no comparison at all. I mean, so to even, I mean, I get it with Arch Manning. The pedigree obviously is there, and I think that he'll be great at the end of the day as well. But it's totally unfair to evaluate a player in his first scrimmage against college players in the last time he played in pads was in high school. I mean, it's just not even a fair comparison. I mean, anybody that has success from going from high school and steps on the college field and has success, they got lucky. They just happen to be in the right spot. They got lucky. I mean, it's just not fair to the kid.
Yeah, and someone made a call about floaters. Again, we talked about he had to play. He did throw one off his back foot that was probably ill-advised, not the best thinking. But in general, if you're watching right here, the video I shot. Sorry, I'm not a cameraman, but you saw Caleb. Watch him follow everywhere. I was watching this for a while. That he follows him along. He's being tutored by Caleb. You saw them breaking down. This was right after he came out because he had the ball was stripped from him. It looked like his arm was going forward. I thought it should have been an incomplete pass, but it was. You're going to have him learning mentored by Caleb Williams. So let's see about this. This young man is going to be mentored by Caleb. He's going to get some input from Kliff Kingsbury, and his head coach and offensive coordinator is Lincoln Riley. He comes from his accolades. He was an awesome quarterback. Believe me, I think we're okay having Nelson in the wings.
And Kingsbury might help out a little bit.
Not to mention the receiving core that he's going to have coming, right?
Hey, so kudos to you, Tim, for shooting some great video. And I mean, that encapsulates exactly what you're talking about.
You can thank the guy up here because without him inviting us to the game and getting us that press pass, I listen, you guys. I have enough B-roll and I have enough pictures from just the season game that I'm gonna be running this stuff all next year on the post game show. Whatever, we're gonna have lots of stuff, lots of pictures to show throughout the summer and into fall.
JJ, you're phenomenal, man. It's you define the Trojan family, my friend.
And it was so nice.
I was just a small part of it, as you guys know. There's a lot of other guys, other receivers I'd rather have been.
Oh, I don't think I was anyone else. I also, you guys, was lucky enough to go with a baseball game with JJ because you guys know he was not only was he a receiver, but he was also a center fielder. So
by the way, is my baseball picture getting any love?
There you go.
Yeah.
I had one of my great buddies hang that up for me, so I want to give him credit.
Yeah. And then also really quickly, JJ. So we talked about John, his son who played football at USC and is transferring. We also talked about his daughter who played soccer. But also give your youngest son, give the little guy a little shout out. He's a baseball player, freshman at St. John Bosco, right?
Yeah, he's a freshman at St. John Bosco. I love him to death. His name is Jaden. We're the best thing about him is that I guess I don't know if it's the best for USC fans to know or the worst, but he's a very good player and he's committed to UCLA.
We've got 3+ years to change that, JJ. But hopefully, Coach Stankiewicz is getting that. They're turning around. Did they win last night, Rick?
No, they didn't. They actually lost today too. They got swept by the Beavs. Connor Johnson, congrats to your Beavs.
So
I will say this about my son. When he told me the news he committed to UCLA, he did then say he was quiet and then he said, "Dad, are you okay?"
It's checking.
He just kept checking to see if you're still breathing. Yeah, but yeah, I love him to death, and I think he's going to be a great player in the future. And he's a great son right now, which is all I can ask.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, there've been three generations of Trojans in the Jackson family. We are truly blessed. I'm very blessed to have met you. Thank you so much for going to the baseball game with me last week and inviting Rick and myself to join you for the spring game. Again, anytime you want to go to, we're going to the Bruin game. See, so we got to show your son the UCLA game on Saturday. So you guys also, USC is playing this Saturday. The baseball team is playing on the weekend, is playing the Bruins at Dado Field. Come check it out. Let's pack Dado and tell us Bruins how it's played.
7 p.m.
I can tell you the best I've got from him already, because I told him about the game. The best I got from already is he said, "Dad, I'll come say hi to you." So I'm not asking for too much from him. I'm not expecting too much, but he did say he'll come say hello. So you guys will get to meet him as well.
Nice. All right. Well, you guys, again, another special and amazing Trojan Conquest Live. There's so much going on with USC Full, so much to be excited about. Rick, as always, you make my job so much easier. Thank you so much. And then our guest on the show, JJ, you are awesome. I hope you can come back and visit some other time.
Oh, definitely, guys, anytime.
JJ, thank you so much.
Right,
Appreciate it.
Trojans. Stop blaming Alex Grinch. It's not his fault.
All right. With that, all right. Fight on, you guys. We'll see you next week.